For years, Aya Wilson stood as one of the WNBA's most visible and dominant forces. But when Caitlin Clark accepted an LPGA invitation and drew national attention for her golf skills, something shifted. The glow of crossover stardom wasn't shared, it was resented. Instead of celebrating Clark's ability to elevate all women's sports, key figures in the WNBA grew cold. Wilson's subtle jabs and the league silence weren't just reactions.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
They revealed a troubling undercurrent of jealousy and resistance. The bitterness wasn't about golf. It was about control, influence, and the fear of losing the narrative, even when that narrative was undeniably good for everyone. In that silence, the WNBA lost more than a moment. They missed a chance to embrace a unifier, someone who could bring fresh attention, new fans, and broader relevance to their game. While the LPGA took a forward-thinking leap and gained record-breaking attention, the WNBA chose defensiveness over vision. Clark's effortless crossover success didn't just expose a fractured league. It revealed who's ready to grow and who's still clinging to old turf lines. Caitlin Clark took a golf club, swung once, and set the entire world of women's sports on fire. She didn't break a scoring record. She didn't announce a sponsorship deal. She just showed up to a Pro-Am LPGA event, smiled for a few cameras, hit a few clean shots, and boom, the internet exploded. Viewership spiked. Engagement went off the charts. And women's golf? It had a moment, a big one. But what made it even bigger was what came after. Or more accurately, what didn't come at all from the WNBA. While the LPGA basked in the glow of crossover fame, embracing Caitlin like a long-lost sister finally coming home, the league she actually plays for, the WNBA, stayed silent. No hype, no love, no league-wide rallying cry. Just an awkward vacuum where support should have been. And in that vacuum, jealousy started creeping in. The one name that kept coming up? Aya Wilson. The multi-time MVP. The face of the Las Vegas Aces. The player who's supposed to be the league's leader. And yet, instead of celebrating Caitlin's rising tide, she responded with coded comments, subtle digs, vague tweets, passive-aggressive energy that practically screamed, "I see you, and I don't like it." You didn't need a decoder ring to figure out. While Caitlin's clips were going viral across TikTok and ESPN, Wilson's response wasn't a show of unity. It was a flex of discomfort. And she wasn't alone. That same vibe, territorial, dismissive, cold, was echoed throughout the league. The message was clear. Caitlin Clark may be good for ratings, but she's not being welcomed with open arms. And that's where this whole situation starts to unravel. Because what this golf crossover revealed wasn't just Caitlin's star power. It exposed something way more fragile. The insecurities simmering beneath the surface of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark has become the most visible player in women's basketball and one of the most talked about names in all of women's sports before she's even finished her rookie year. Her appeal extends far beyond basketball courts. She brings fans. She brings sponsors. She brings engagement that actually moves the needle. That kind of influence should be a dream for any league, a gift. But instead, the WNBA's response has been to meet it with cold shoulders and quiet resentment. Because her rise challenges the unspoken order of things. And some of the league's veterans, they're not loving it. What's ironic is that Caitlin hasn't said a word. She hasn't clapped back. She hasn't called out the lack of support. She hasn't fed into the drama. She just keeps showing up, doing her job, handling media like a pro, and staying focused. Meanwhile, the contrast couldn't be louder. The LPGA immediately saw the opportunity and jumped on it. They didn't care that Caitlin isn't a golfer. They didn't care that she's from a different sport. What they saw was someone who could bring attention, bridge audiences, and elevate the brand of women's sports. And that's exactly what she did. The event drew record-breaking engagement. Social clips went viral. People who'd never watched a women's golf tournament suddenly knew when the next one was happening. Caitlin wasn't trying to be the star of a new sport. She was just existing. And somehow, That was enough to tilt the whole conversation. Golf welcomed her. Basketball resented her. Why? Because the LPGA is playing the long game. They saw Caitlin as a symbol of the future, a cross-sport ambassador who could help grow the ecosystem of women's athletics. The WNBA, on the other hand, saw her as a disruption to the existing power structure. Someone who hadn't earned her dues, yet was becoming the face of the league overnight. And that's the real problem. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for all this attention, but she's smart enough not to reject it. She knows that influence, when used correctly, can change the game, not just for her, but for everyone. But it only works if the people around her are willing to let it. And right now, the WNBA isn't letting it. Instead of promoting her, they're treating her like a threat. Instead of aligning their brand with her momentum, they're distancing themselves from it. Instead of celebrating her golf moment as a win for all of women's sports, they're pretending it didn't happen and hoping the conversation moves on. But the public isn't buying that. Because it's not just about Caitlin Clark hitting a few clean drives on a golf course. It's about what that moment represents. It's about how women's sports can and should lift each other up when the spotlight finally shows up. It's about recognizing that one player's viral moment is an opportunity for collective growth, not individual resentment. The LPGA understood that. The WNBA didn't. This could have been a league-wide celebration, a unifying moment, the kind of cross-sport story that inspires sponsors, networks, and new fans to invest more into women's leagues across the board. But instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when ego outweighs vision. Because the truth is, Caitlin's presence is exposing the cracks. The WNBA has spent years fighting for legitimacy, visibility, and respect. And now, when a player comes along who actually brings all of those things, the league is choking on its own pride. Aya Wilson didn't need to start a public feud. Her reactions, intentional or not, spoke volumes. The WNBA's silence only amplified it. While golf took a risk and bet big on Caitlin, basketball sat back, arms crossed, treating her influence like a problem instead of an asset. And here's the kicker. Caitlin's not going anywhere. She's only going to keep rising. Her crossover into other sports, media, and endorsements isn't a fluke. It's the new model. She's what the modern athlete looks like. Marketable, magnetic, multidimensional. And every league should be fighting to align with that energy, not running from it. The question is, will the WNBA learn that lesson in time? Because the longer they treat Caitlin Clark like a disruption instead of a revolution, the more they risk alienating the very audiences they've spent decades trying to reach. This isn't about one viral golf clip. It's about the bigger picture, the shifting culture, the opportunity to evolve. And if they're not careful, they'll miss it entirely. So what's the takeaway here? That leadership matters. That unity matters. That jealousy is the fastest way to stall momentum. And that when women's sports finally get the attention they've always deserved, the response shouldn't be bitterness. It should be celebration. Caitlin Clark didn't break the system. She exposed how fragile it really was. So what do you think? Did the WNBA completely fumble the bag here? Or was the silence a calculated choice? Is Caitlin's rise a unifying force? Or just too disruptive for some to handle? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who's watching all the drama unfold. And subscribe for more deep dives into the messy, thrilling world of sports and celebrity chaos. Because this story, it's far from over. Caitlin Clark didn't make the WNBA insecure. She just made it impossible to hide anymore. Before she ever stepped on a professional court, the buzz was already there. Sellout crowds, exploding jersey sales, national headlines. She brought all of it with her just by showing up. But the second she stepped outside the lines of basketball and into another sports spotlight, the reaction shifted from celebration to resistance. That shift wasn't subtle. It was loud in its silence. Because when Caitlin showed up at the LPGA, Pro-Am, and the golf world welcomed her like royalty, the response from the WNBA's most visible names was not excitement. It was indifference at best. And at worst, it was pure defensiveness dressed up as professionalism. Aya Wilson, in particular, became the unofficial spokesperson for that reaction. Not by saying something explicitly, but by saying just enough to let you know exactly how she felt. Her subtle jabs, the timing of her social media activity, and a league-wide cold shoulder didn't go unnoticed. The audience caught on fast. And this isn't just gossip, it's a symptom. Because what this moment revealed was something no one wanted to say out loud. The WNBA has a culture problem. One that gets triggered the minute someone steps outside the approved narrative of how to rise in the league. And Caitlyn, by simply being herself, by being successful, and by being visible in spaces that weren't basketball, pushed every single button. She didn't break a rule. She broke the mold. And for some, that was unforgivable. But here's what makes it worse. Caitlyn wasn't even trying to be disruptive. She wasn't campaigning for attention or demanding coverage. She went to a golf event, hit a few balls, and left. She showed respect for the sport, for the athletes, and for the platform she was stepping into. She stayed in her lane, stayed gracious, and still managed to pull more attention in 48 hours than some leagues have managed all season. That's not her fault. That's influence. And influence is exactly what the WNBA should be leveraging, not resisting. The LPGA understood this. Instantly. They didn't gatekeep. They didn't hesitate. They brought her in, elevated her, and the result? Record-breaking engagement, media coverage, and an entirely new demographic of fans discovering women's golf for the first time. They played it smart, and they reaped the rewards. The WNBA, though, they flinched. Instead of amplifying her, they watched from the sidelines. No shout-outs, no brand synergy, no mutual promotion. Just passive-aggressive energy from players who felt eclipsed, even if no one was casting a shadow. And that's the irony. Caitlin Clark's light doesn't dim anyone else's. If anything, she brings more visibility to everyone she plays with. More fans in the stands. More eyes on games. More money in the ecosystem. But when the vibe in the locker room is more prove yourself than we're all in this together, the message is clear. Rise quietly, or not at all. And it begs the question, what exactly does the WNBA want from its stars? Because when someone like Caitlyn shows up, humble, hardworking, marketable, and effective, and still gets met with cold shoulders and coated shade, you have to ask what kind of success they're actually willing to embrace. Is it only acceptable if it comes after years of climbing a rigid ladder? Is it only valid if it doesn't outshine the veterans? Is it only welcome if it conforms to the internal politics of the league? Because if so, that's not growth. That's stagnation with a PR team. Caitlyn's cross-sport moment should have been the blueprint. It should have sparked collaboration, celebration, and strategy. It should have been shared. But instead, it became a fault line, exposing the insecurities that still haunt the WNBA's identity. And what's especially frustrating is that this was the moment. This was a rare, golden opportunity for two major women's sports leagues to link arms and send a powerful message. We rise together. Instead, one league leaned in and the other shrank back. That contrast is impossible to ignore. The LPGA proved what smart leadership looks like. They didn't get territorial. They didn't see Caitlyn as a threat to their golfer's shine. They saw her as a catalyst, a rising tide, and they were right. Because after her appearance, the numbers don't lie. Engagement soared, coverage spread, and the LPGA suddenly had a spotlight it rarely enjoys. Meanwhile, back at the WNBA, the internal tension only grew louder. Fans began noticing how much of Caitlyn's success is driven externally, by media, by sponsors, by fans, not by the league itself. The same league that should be shouting her name from every rooftop is keeping her at arm's length. And it's not subtle. You can't celebrate women's sports growth on Monday, then snub the woman driving it on Tuesday. This is bigger than one player's golf swing. This is about what kind of future the WNBA is building. Because right now, it looks like a future that's deeply uncomfortable with change, even when that change is good. It's a future that says we want more attention, but only if it's spread out perfectly, evenly, and politely. It's a future that clings to legacy and hierarchy over opportunity and innovation. And that's not sustainable, because Caitlin Clark is only the beginning. She's not a fluke, she's a signal. Athletes today are crossing over into entertainment, fashion, endorsements, and yes, other sports. That's not brand dilution. That's brand expansion. And the leagues that understand it will thrive. The ones that don't, they'll get left behind. And honestly, the WNBA has worked too hard to let outdated dynamics drag it down now. This is a moment to evolve, to learn from golf, to lean into the energy instead of resisting it. Caitlin isn't here to steal anyone's shine. She's here to widen the spotlight. But if she's met with jealousy and defensiveness instead of respect and alignment, then the league is going to lose more than just a PR battle. It's going to lose fans, momentum, and most importantly, trust. Because people are watching closely. They see the energy. They read between the lines. They know when someone's being iced out. And that kind of vibe, it's not empowering. It's toxic. So here's what needs to happen. The WNBA has to decide, right now, whether it's going to lead or lag, whether it's going to support its biggest opportunities or treat them like problems, whether it's going to be a platform for unity or a place where players have to earn the right to be seen. Because Caitlin Clark didn't create this moment. She just revealed what was already broken. And if this league wants to build something lasting, something that actually empowers women, it needs to get over the politics and start thinking like the LPGA. Not scared, not territorial, but bold, strategic, and collaborative. That's how you win. Here's the wildest part. Caitlin Clark didn't say anything. She didn't throw shade. She didn't clap back. She didn't even acknowledge the noise. And yet, her presence alone was enough to expose the deep insecurities running through the WNBA right now. That silence? It made everything louder. Because while Caitlin was out there casually helping the LPGA rake in record engagement, the league she plays for was stuck in a storm of unspoken tension. It's one thing for the league to avoid promoting her crossover moment, but the way it bled into player dynamics, that's where things got messy. Every tweet that didn't mention her name, every carefully worded soundbite, every awkward press conference. Fans noticed. Media noticed. The timeline definitely noticed. And suddenly, we weren't talking about golf anymore. We were talking about pettiness, power dynamics, and the absolute refusal to give credit where it's due. What's clear now is this. Caitlin Clark is forcing a reckoning. She didn't just go viral at a golf event. She showed everyone that the traditional playbook for how women's sports stars earn visibility is outdated. That influence doesn't come in a neat, slow-burning package. Sometimes it shows up fast, loud, and disruptive. And you either evolve with it or get steamrolled by it. The LPGA saw that wave coming and said, let's ride it. The WNBA saw the same wave and panicked. Instead of embracing the storm and using Caitlin's momentum to lift everyone, they tried to brace for impact. But that response, rooted in fear and control, only made things worse. Because when you try to minimize someone this visible, all you do is shine an even brighter spotlight on your discomfort. And what's being exposed isn't just about Caitlin. It's about how women's leagues treat success, especially when it doesn't follow the script. The WNBA is full of incredible athletes. That's not up for debate. But what this moment revealed is that there's a gap between talent and influence. Not everyone who's great on the court translates to a broader cultural impact. And that's okay. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. But when someone does have that crossover magic, the smart move isn't to reject it, it's to harness it. Caitlin Clark is marketable because she connects with people. She's accessible. She's watchable. She brings in fans who might have never watched a women's basketball game before. That doesn't mean she's better than other players. It means she's valuable. And any league that actually wants to grow should know how to use that value. But what we've seen instead is resistance. And not just from the league office, but from players who feel like her rise somehow diminishes their own legacy. And that's the toxic part. Because success in women's sports should not be a zero-sum game. One player's spotlight doesn't steal the light from others. It makes the whole stage brighter. But if your first reaction to someone else winning is to question whether they deserve it, then you've already lost the bigger picture. Caitlin Clark's rise is a chance to expand the pie, to invite in new fans, sponsors, media, and momentum. And if you don't want to share that pie because you think someone skipped the line, then maybe the problem isn't Caitlin. Maybe the problem is how you define success in the first place. And let's be real, it's not like Caitlin didn't earn it. She didn't get here through hype alone. She earned her status through record-breaking college performances, jaw-dropping shooting ability, and the kind of composure under pressure that most rookies don't even dream of. She brought an entire wave of attention with her, and she's been handling it with more professionalism than some of the veterans trying to ice her out. She's doing her job, better than most. And somehow that's the problem? Because when the league's biggest names respond to her success with sarcasm, silence, or passive-aggressive jabs, they're not just disrespecting Caitlin. They're undermining the future of their own league. The WNBA wants more viewers, more respect, more money. But when those things finally start rolling in, attached to someone they didn't expect, it's like they're not sure if they want it anymore. At least, not if it means they have to share the spotlight. Meanwhile, the LPGA is over here taking notes. They're not worried about who gets top billing. They're focused on the bigger win. And while women's golf might not be as buzzy as basketball on most days, in that one weekend, they proved they understood something fundamental. Caitlin Clark isn't a threat. She's a test of whether women's sports can embrace stars who don't wait their turn, a test of whether leagues can adapt to a new kind of influence, a test of whether collaboration matters more than ego. And honestly, the WNBA failed it. They had every chance to turn this into a unifying moment, and instead, they chose distance, discomfort, bitterness. While Caitlin went viral doing something outside of basketball, her own league missed a golden opportunity to remind the world where she came from. That silence? It spoke volumes. It told us that growth is scary, that not everyone in power is ready for what visibility really looks like, and that even in women's sports, where unity is supposed to be the foundation, jealousy can still break everything apart. So where do we go from here? The WNBA has to decide whether it wants to be a gatekeeper or a growth engine, whether it wants to empower its rising stars or isolate them, whether it's building a legacy of collaboration or a legacy of resentment. Because Caitlin Clark isn't going to stop shining just because some people can't handle the glare. The spotlight follows her now. The question is, will her league follow too? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this just a PR misstep, or did the WNBA show its true colors? Like the video if you're following this drama. Share it if you've got friends who love a little sports chaos. And subscribe if you're here for the full, unfiltered breakdowns. Because in a world where one golf swing can trigger a league-wide meltdown, you know there's always more to come.